They say justice wears a blindfold, but sometimes it just turns its head and spits. The first time Judge Terrence Lowell looked up from his bench and saw her, he smirked like the room already belonged to him, like he knew what kind of story she was supposed to play in his courtroom. The kind where the black woman shows up late, mumbles excuses, and folds when the pressure comes. Only, that's not the story Dr. Lena Morris brought with her. She walked into courtroom 4C without a lawyer, without an entourage, just a neat braid down her back, a plain gray skirt, and a black cane tapping once, then twice across the polished floor. Not for support, for rhythm, for control. The bailiff didn't even announce her name before Judge Lowell barked, "Late are we figures." Reading the time must be difficult when you're too busy blaming everyone else. Lena paused, just for a second. Her eyes scanned the gallery, half full, half curious, all quiet. A young woman in the second row blinked hard and pulled her phone a little closer under her scarf. Tap, record. Judge Lowell leaned back in his chair like he was watching a rerun. "This is a courtroom," he said, "not a daycare for people who can't follow simple rules." Lena didn't speak. Not yet. But her jaw flexed. To most people, she looked passive. To anyone who'd ever stood silent in the face of a storm, she looked loaded. The prosecutor Ramirez shifted in his seat. He was young, new. You could tell by the way his fingers hovered over his files like they might protect him. Lowell looked at Lena again, eyes like rusted knives. "You people always think silence makes you smart," he said. "But I know you're kind loud when you're stealing, mute when you're caught. You could feel it like static behind your ears. The collective inhale, the dread trying not to become outrage." Still, Lena said nothing. The judge rolled his eyes. "Swear her in." The bailiff hesitated, just for a beat too long. And in that breath, the air changed. Because that was when people started realizing she wasn't the one on trial. He was. She stood tall as the oath was read, didn't stumble, didn't flinch. Only her hand tightened on the cane. Just a little. But that was enough. Enough for Ramirez to glance up again, this time longer. Enough for the girl with the scarf to lean forward, her hand shaking slightly under her coat. Enough for a man in the back, one of those who had laughed when Lowell first made his zoo comment, to suddenly stop smiling. But none of them spoke, except one. An older man in a janitor's uniform standing quietly by the exit. Mr. Clay. He'd seen more courtrooms than most lawyers. Watched more trials than most judges. He cleared his throat and said, "That's not right, Your Honor. She hasn't even spoken." Lowell's head snapped. "Unless you want to mop blood instead of floors, I suggest you shut your damn mouth." Clay's voice dried up, but his eyes didn't look away. They stayed fixed on Lena, soft, apologetic, like saying, "I tried." His hand tightened on the handle of his cart. He stepped back. Lena's gaze didn't follow him. It stayed locked on the man behind the bench, but her breathing quickened. Not rage, not fear, memory. And that was when the trigger hit. Because Lowell leaned in again, voice quieter now, more pointed. "Or should I draw it in crayons for you?" A flicker barely there crossed Lena's face. A shadow, then a flash. Because those were the same words barked at her 15 years ago in a muddy training field in Mississippi, where a drill sergeant shoved her face into the dirt and told her she'd never make it past week 2. She had. Broken toe, fractured rib, frostbite, heat stroke still made it. Still stood. Still passed every test the Army threw at her. And now this man, this judge with a badge of power but no ounce of discipline, thought he could break her with tone. Lena exhaled once. Deep, controlled. Her eyes drifted upward, not to the judge but to the flag behind him, then down to her folded documents, sealed and indexed. The room grew heavy. You could hear a cough in the hallway, a pen drop 2 rows back. And then she spoke. Not loud, not angry, just steady. "My name," she said, "is Dr. Lena Morris. I hold a dual PhD in law and information systems. I've taught constitutional ethics to people with more courtroom experience than you'll ever have. And if you'd read even one of the letters I sent this court 2 weeks ago, you'd know the charges filed here are not only incorrect, they are criminally negligent." Lowell smirked. "Oh, you finally learned to talk." But his smirk twitched just a hair. Because Ramirez had picked up the folder Lena handed over to the bailiff. And he had stopped flipping pages, stopped breathing almost. His eyes locked on one paragraph, then another, then a photo. Then 3. The same photo. Same forged signature. Different cases. Lowell snapped, "Mr. Ramirez, is there an issue?" Ramirez didn't answer. He just pressed his lips together tight and lifted his phone. Under the desk. 3 taps. Send. To a contact labeled Civil Watch, Confidential. And in that exact moment, something shifted in the crowd. Some of those who'd chuckled earlier, one woman with gold hoop earrings, a man in a checkered blazer, shifted in their seats, guilt creeping up their collars. And in the front row, the girl in the scarf leaned over to her neighbor and whispered, "She's not here to defend herself. She's here to bury him." The room didn't gasp, but it knew. This wasn't just a hearing anymore. This was a reckoning. Lena stood there calm but carved from steel. Ramirez's hands trembled as he placed the folder down. Not from fear, from clarity. His voice, low but clear, broke the silence. "Your Honor, I recommend a recess." Lowell flinched. On what grounds, he snapped too fast. "On the grounds that these documents suggest we may have made a mistake," Ramirez replied. But Lena didn't let him take over. She stepped forward, not asking, not hesitating, just moving. With that cane, click, click. Her words followed sharp and deliberate. "No, you didn't make a mistake. You made a decision. You saw a black woman and you decided I belonged in a file, not at the front of a classroom. You decided I was guilty because I didn't fit your idea of who belongs in this building." The judge's gavel slammed once. "Enough," he barked. But the sound didn't carry anymore, not like before, because even the people in the gallery who had laughed, who had smirked, now sat quiet, eyes fixed on the bench. One woman held her mouth. Another man shifted uncomfortably and looked away. Mr. Clay stood by the wall again, eyes low, lips pressed tight like he was holding back something too heavy for words. Lena turned to the crowd, not to plead, but to expose. "Judge Lowell has dismissed 3 discrimination cases this year. Suppressed video evidence because the accused wore urban clothing. Blocked a housing claim by labeling the plaintiff's tone as aggressive. These are not errors. They are patterns." The courtroom doors opened without ceremony. A man stepped in. Quiet suit, quiet shoes, quiet power. He flashed a badge. Special Agent Malik J. Evans, Department of Justice. Lowell's face cracked for the first time, not rage, not defiance. Confusion, maybe fear. "This court," Evans said, "has been under quiet review for 6 weeks. And as of this moment, Judge Lowell, you are formally suspended from the bench pending investigation into racial bias and obstruction of justice." A pause, not one of silence, but of shift, of air redistributing, authority evaporating. Lowell stared at the badge, then at Lena, and something inside him broke loose. "You want to ruin me?" he said, rising to his feet. "Is that it? You think some viral video and a folder full of cherry-picked cases make you a hero?" Lena didn't flinch, didn't blink. "I didn't come here to be a hero," she said. "I came here because I was tired of swallowing my voice just so men like you could hear themselves echo." Lowell's voice cracked with fury now. "You don't know what it's like. This job, this robe comes with pressure. You try managing a court full of liars, criminals, freeloaders." Ramirez stood up sharply. "Objection. Your Honor, that's enough." Lowell turned to him like a cornered animal. "You think she's clean? You think she's the only one I've seen them play the race card so many times?" He froze, because it hit him mid-sentence. The room was listening, not in silence, in judgment. And for once, he was the one being weighed. His eyes flicked across the gallery. The girl in the scarf, tears in her eyes. The man in the checkered blazer, looking at the floor. Mr. Clay still by the wall, still watching. But this time he didn't look away. Lowell's shoulders slumped. The fire didn't leave him, but the power did. He sat down, not like a judge, like a man aging 5 years in a minute. I was just doing my job," he muttered. Lena walked toward him, close enough for only him to hear. "No," she said. "You were doing what you thought you could get away with." He looked at her now, not with rage, but something smaller, something almost like regret. Almost, but not enough. Agent Evans signaled. 2 officers approached, hands gentle but firm. Lowell didn't resist, didn't argue, just whispered to himself, "They'll turn on you too, you know." Lena didn't reply, but her hands, once tense, relaxed slightly, because this time She didn't need to win a fight. She already had. As Lowell was escorted out, a murmur rippled through the room. Not cheers, not applause, just the collective sound of reckoning. A girl in the back whispered to her mother, "She looks like me." And that was louder than any gavel. The next morning, the news cycle exploded. Black woman exposes corrupt judge in viral courtroom showdown. Social media split wide open, some screaming justice, others claiming vendetta. A local news anchor called Lena calculated and cold. A pastor on the radio called her the echo of truth we've ignored too long. Sheriff Daniels gave a press statement. If what's being alleged is true, the system owes Dr. Morris more than an apology. And Lena, she stayed silent. Until that night when she uploaded one video. No makeup, no background music, no filters, just her voice. Some say I embarrassed a man, that I went too far. But I remember the day a drill instructor told me I was too soft to lead, that I'd never last in a man's field. I remember biting my cheek to stop from crying. I remember learning how to walk silent, shoot straight, and speak only when it mattered. Well, this time it mattered. The video hit 1 million views in 4 hours. But Lena didn't watch the numbers. She sat on her porch that night sipping tea as the wind stirred the pages of a closed folder beside her. Inside it, names, cases, evidence. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. And maybe justice is slow. Maybe it's ugly. But sometimes it walks with a cane. And it doesn't flinch. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Who was right? Who was wrong? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if you believe justice still matters.